about Whoopi Goldberg because I got so many texts this week because she attacked me the week before.
Sure.
So she was, everybody was like, "Oh, Bill, I get you're enjoying the karma." First of all, I'm going to talk about this at the end of my show next week, teaser. But there is no thing as karma, okay? Get over that.
Political debates today are less about open-minded discussions and more like battlegrounds where logic and reason collide with unwavering ideologies. This time, Bill Maher stepped right into the fire, challenging Whoopi Goldberg in a debate that had everyone talking. But this wasn't just another Hollywood disagreement or celebrity argument. This was a wake-up call. Maher, known for his unfiltered opinions, has spent years calling out contradictions on both sides of the political spectrum. However, his latest exchange with Whoopi went beyond anything we've seen before.
That part of our sorry racial history in this country is that the point of view from a black person is often going to be very different and sometimes shocking.
The conversation wasn't just heated. It exposed the widening gap between elite progressive narratives and the everyday struggles of real Americans. Whoopi, standing firm in her usual stance, relied on the same talking points that dominate *The View*, rhetoric that might sound compelling in a carefully curated media bubble. But Maher wasn't having it. He fired back with cold, hard facts, challenging her arguments point by point. The inconsistencies in her reasoning became impossible to ignore, and for once, Whoopi found herself searching for a solid comeback.
I watch your show all the time, so I know that you're a comic, but you basically go after Trump and Biden. You know, both of them. And a lot of people are not happy with you about that. I'm
not equally.
Well, not equally, because you know that Trump is more dangerous.
Of course. I mean, I don't think anybody was more out front on that danger than I was.
This wasn't just about two TV personalities sparring. It was a much bigger reflection of the growing disconnect between Hollywood-style progressivism and real-world issues. While Whoopi pushed the usual elite narrative, Maher cut straight to the core, asking the questions that mainstream media often avoids. The entire exchange left audiences divided. Some praised Maher for his unfiltered approach, while others rushed to defend Whoopi. But one thing was crystal clear: when ideological talking points are put under real scrutiny, they don't always hold up. Before diving into the debate itself, it's crucial to understand the two figures at the center of it all. Whoopi Goldberg, an outspoken advocate for liberal policies, has repeatedly dismissed criticisms of the left, often labeling them as exaggerated right-wing narratives. She's known for doubling down on progressive viewpoints and rarely entertaining opposing perspectives. On the other hand, Bill Maher doesn't fit neatly into a conservative box. He's a traditional liberal, but one who refuses to follow rigid ideological scripts. His willingness to challenge both sides makes him a unique voice in political discourse. This contrast alone set the stage for a debate that was anything but ordinary.
Talking about how he was never going to give up power. Long ago, when everybody was laughing at me and said, "You smoke too much pot," and I said, "I smoke just the right amount of pot," because plainly, I was using the term slow-moving coup before he was elected the first time.
That's right.
I said, this guy is never going to concede power. It's impossible to imagine him going,
The exchange escalated when Whoopi downplayed concerns over crime, inflation, and the struggles of working-class Americans. She dismissed these issues as overblown, but Maher immediately pushed back, arguing that these aren't just political talking points, they are everyday realities affecting millions. Rather than directly responding to Maher's criticisms, Whoopi sidestepped the discussion, offering vague rebuttals that avoided the core issues. When she did engage, her defense relied on outdated economic arguments that no longer align with what people are actually experiencing. Despite frequently claiming to stand for marginalized communities, certain political figures often overlook what those communities truly care about.
Saying anything against Biden because I feel, not that I have so much power, and you have some more than I do, obviously, but
I don't know about that.
Are you afraid that you might, influence people who are on the fence?
I think you lose all credibility.
Poll after poll shows that Black and Hispanic voters are far more concerned with economic security and crime than the ideological battles playing out on social media. Yet, Whoopi refused to acknowledge this reality, making her argument even weaker as the discussion unfolded. Then came the moment that changed everything. Maher, never one to shy away from calling out hypocrisy, shifted gears and went straight for what he saw as a Democratic double standard. He brought up Hunter Biden's scandals, pointing out how the same Democrats who demand accountability often fall silent when one of their own faces scrutiny. Whoopi visibly tensed up. She quickly dismissed the controversy, insisting it was being exaggerated by critics. But Maher wasn't about to let that slide. He pressed further, reminding the audience of President Biden's own words, that no one is above the law.
And my bond with my audience has always been I don't pull a punch.
Yeah.
My bond with my audience is you're not going to like everything I say,
Yeah.
but you know I'm saying what I really think is true.
Right.
That's.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. And look, Biden just presents as old. It's not really fair.
No.
Because he's almost the same age. Trump is almost the same age as him.
Yet that statement rang hollow, as soon after, Biden was reportedly preparing to pardon his own son. The contradiction was undeniable. Maher made it crystal clear, if the rules only apply when it's politically convenient, then they aren't rules at all. They are just empty rhetoric. Whoopi's defense crumbled. She faltered, struggling to counter Maher's relentless reasoning. The energy in the room had shifted. And for once, Whoopi was on the defensive with nowhere left to turn. As the conversation reached a boiling point, Maher turned his attention to a key player in political influence, the media. He didn't hold back, calling out mainstream outlets for allegedly suppressing the Hunter Biden story ahead of the election. According to Maher, this wasn't just about bias. It was about controlling the narrative rather than prioritizing journalistic integrity. Whoopi, clearly rattled, dismissed his argument outright, waving it off as yet another right-wing conspiracy theory. But Maher came armed with evidence. He reminded Whoopi and the audience that even some left-leaning journalists had admitted the Hunter Biden story was downplayed to protect political interests.
Present that way. You know, you look at somebody right away, you can kind of just sum them up. I mean, we are not young, but we don't present as old.
Yeah.
Biden does. I saw him yesterday making that speech.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, he's cadaver-like.
But his brain is good. He's still great.
Well, here's what I said. Like when I came back after the strike in September, I said,
And that, Maher argued, is the real danger of extreme ideological narratives. It's not about truth, justice, or progress. It's about controlling the conversation. If inconvenient facts can be ignored or silenced, then how can anyone trust the system? Once again, Whoopi had no solid rebuttal. Instead of countering with facts, she chose the easy way out, changing the subject. At this point, Maher broadened the discussion, taking aim at a larger issue, the progressive movement's increasing hostility toward any form of dissent. He pointed out that the very people progressives claim to fight for, working-class Americans, are rejecting these elitist, media-driven narratives. But instead of acknowledging this undeniable shift, Whoopi doubled down. She continued to dismiss these concerns, branding them as nothing more than right-wing rhetoric. But Maher wasn't finished. He shifted focus to the changing political landscape, explaining how the Democratic Party's sharp leftward shift has alienated key voter demographics.
a conservative once said to me, what you guys in the liberal side of it don't get about Donald Trump is we don't like him either.
Yeah.
It's just that in this country, it's binary. I mean, gender may not be binary, but politics is. You only get two choices. And the stuff that they are afraid of, they see Donald Trump as a bulwark against.
Black and Hispanic communities tend to be more patriotic, more supportive of law enforcement, and far less tolerant of unchecked illegal immigration than the white progressive activists who claim to speak for them. Yet, rather than addressing the real concerns of these communities, Democrats continue to cater to elite ideologues, pushing policies that often have little to do with what people actually want. Throughout the debate, Whoopi Goldberg struggled to keep up. Faced with Maher's fact-based arguments, she sidestepped, deflected, and relied on vague emotional appeals rather than directly engaging with the substance of the discussion. This is a pattern often seen in political discourse, where ideological narratives take precedence over objective reality. One of the most revealing moments came when Maher challenged Whoopi directly on the priorities of Black and Hispanic Americans. Rather than acknowledging that these communities care far more about economic stability and public safety than progressive activism, Whoopi dodged the question, steering the conversation in a completely different direction. And that, Maher argued, is the core issue with rigid ideological politics. When confronted with inconvenient truths, its most vocal supporters often refuse to engage. Instead of adapting to reality, they double down, change the subject, or dismiss opposing views altogether.
The Hunter Biden story before the election because they were like, we can't risk having the election thrown to Trump. We'll tell them after the election.
Whoopi fell into that same trap. With her arguments unraveling, she made a last-ditch effort to flip the script, playing the victim. She accused Maher of misrepresenting her views and trying to make her look bad. But Maher wasn't twisting anything. He was simply holding up a mirror, and the reflection wasn't flattering. Faced with cold, hard facts, Whoopi had nowhere left to go. Her only defense was denial, but by that point, the damage had already been done. Maher's critique was especially impactful, not because it came from a conservative, but precisely because it didn't. As a lifelong liberal, Maher has been a fixture in progressive circles, making his criticism of the modern left impossible to ignore. Unlike many political commentators, he isn't speaking from the outside looking in. He has watched the evolution of liberalism from within. And what he sees now, he argues, is a movement that has strayed far from its original values. His ability to call out the excesses of progressivism without being dismissed as a right-wing operative gives his arguments an extra level of credibility. He doesn't conform to ideological purity tests, and while that has made him an outcast in certain elite circles, it has also solidified his standing among those who value independent thought, critical thinking, and real debate. What made Maher's critique even more impactful was the way he delivered it. He didn't rely on sensationalism, insults, or empty rhetoric. There was no shouting, no dramatic outbursts, just cold, hard logic. With almost surgical precision, he deconstructed Whoopi's arguments one by one, exposing contradictions she simply couldn't defend. And the impact was undeniable. Whoopi, normally confident in her talking points, found herself on shaky ground. She struggled to come up with a coherent response, instead falling back on vague platitudes and dismissive remarks that only weakened her case. Her frustration was palpable, but without solid counterarguments, all she could do was deflect and deny. But this wasn't just about Whoopi Goldberg losing a debate.
Had her over to the White House, like in 2015, to hint, hey, spend more time with the grandkids. That would not be a good idea, Ruth. And she didn't take the hint, and she was not in good health, and she stayed too long, and she ruined her legacy, and got the Supreme Court now to be a pretty right-wing organization. Said Biden shouldn't do that, but, ego, he's Dracula. He has crossed oceans of time to be here, and he's not going to give it up.
The exchange was a reflection of something much bigger, a growing shift in American politics. More and more people, including former diehard progressives, are seeing through the contradictions of the modern woke movement. Maher, once a celebrated liberal voice, now finds himself one of its fiercest critics, not because he changed, but because the movement abandoned its principles. This debate highlighted the deep divide within liberalism itself. On one side, Maher represents an older generation of liberals, those who believe in free speech, rational debate, and problem-solving. On the other, the woke movement has drifted into ideological rigidity, prioritizing activism over real-world solutions. And as more people begin to question these extreme narratives, one thing is becoming clearer than ever.
That stuff is a lot closer to the home. It's like my kid is coming home from school, and they're not allowed to tell me if they're transitioning. The school is going to take the side of the kid over the parent. Stuff like that. There is a lot of crazy stuff on the left. This book, there's stuff that each side is going to like and probably stuff they're not going to like so much.
Liberalism is at a crossroads, and not everyone is willing to follow it into the deep end of ideological obsession. This massive political shift has left many traditional liberals feeling stranded, disconnected from the very movement they once championed. Maher's critique cuts deep because it exposes a reality that many within the Democratic Party refuse to acknowledge. The party has veered so far left that it has become out of sync with the concerns of everyday Americans. Issues like inflation, crime, and education dominate the minds of voters, yet the political discourse pushed by elite activists often centers around debates that feel detached from reality, such as gender pronouns and microaggressions. While these topics may be of interest to a vocal minority, they don't pay the bills, keep neighborhoods safe, or improve public schools. But instead of adjusting to what voters actually care about, the woke movement continues to double down, ignoring the clear signals that their message isn't resonating with the broader population.
The term woke, and you said that woke is what was sort of ruining everything, and I know that you're...
No, I didn't say ruining everything. I said that's why Trump could get reelected.
That's why Trump could get reelected.
Yeah.
So the term woke has been, in my view, co-opted by the right and weaponized and bashed. And so I was surprised to hear you use the term because historically, as you know, because I think you're quite brilliant, that woke is a word used by the Black community to note that we must be aware of social...
Maher's fearlessness in calling out these contradictions makes him one of the few mainstream voices unafraid to challenge progressive ideology from within. He isn't a right-wing pundit trying to tear down the left, he's a liberal who refuses to follow the script. This willingness to break ranks has earned him respect from conservatives and moderates alike while frustrating progressives who demand total ideological loyalty. His exchange with Whoopi Goldberg wasn't just a celebrity spat, it was a symbolic battle over the future of political commentary in the United States. As mainstream media becomes more ideologically driven, figures like Maher stand out for their refusal to conform to partisan expectations. Unlike many in the media who seem more focused on pushing narratives than delivering facts, Maher's ability to critique both sides makes him one of the last truly independent voices in political discussion today.
I'm not going to defend Donald Trump ever, but I would never say that we should put the swastika on the cap, because I think you can hate Donald Trump. You can't hate everybody who likes him. It's half the country. I don't want to live in that country. I don't want to live in the country where I hate half the country, and I don't hate half the country.
How dare you disagree with me?
This debate also signals a larger transformation in how Americans are consuming political content. Many are ditching traditional news networks and celebrity-driven talk shows, turning instead to independent commentators who offer unfiltered, balanced perspectives. The rise of alternative media suggests that audiences are hungry for real discussions, not just scripted ideological performances. The growing influence of figures like Bill Maher, Joe Rogan, and other independent voices marks a major shift in the media landscape. People are tired of one-sided narratives and are instead looking for raw, unfiltered conversations that actually reflect the realities they face. If mainstream networks like The View refuse to adapt, they risk becoming irrelevant relics in a world that is moving toward independent, skeptical, and free-thinking media. So, what happens next? If The View and other legacy platforms continue doubling down on their ideological blind spots, they will only push away more viewers, especially those already disillusioned by out-of-touch, celebrity-driven lectures. Americans aren't looking for preachy sound bites or elitist outrage. They want real, no-nonsense conversations about issues that actually matter. Maher has proven he's willing to have those conversations, even if it makes him an enemy to ideological purists. Could this be a turning point? If people continue rejecting performative outrage and prioritizing open dialogue over ideological conformity, the establishment media may find itself losing ground faster than expected. The cracks in the foundation are already visible, and Maher's verbal takedown of Whoopi Goldberg might just be the beginning of something much bigger. What do you think? Are we witnessing the downfall of scripted media, or is this just another controversy that will fade away? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. There's plenty more to uncover in the next one.